So in the past few lessons, we've been doing various types of searches in catalogs and in databases. We've done different things involving structuring our search, putting our words in quotation marks, using database fields, using Boolean connectors, but all of those searches revolve around putting search terms into a search box and seeing what we get back. In other words, we don't know what we're going to find, but we're doing some exploring and some searching based on our initial keywords. I want to show you a different type of searching, which involves using reference lists or works cited lists as resources to help you find additional books, articles, other resources related to your topic. This can actually be one of the most productive ways to do research. And it's great because it just hinges on you finding one really good, perfect resource. So if you can find one good resource, then you've got the list of references in that resource, whether it's a book chapter, whether it's a scholarly article. You have that reference list to guide you to the additional resources that those scholars used when they were putting together their work. So I've pulled up a PDF here of a reference list. And let's say I wanted to use this as a way to find additional resources. So the first step is you have to be able to look at a citation and tell whether it's a book or an article. And this is one of the reasons why we spend so much time focusing on having our citations in the exact right format, because then people like us have to be able to come along and read those citations and understand what type of information they're pointing us towards. So if we look at this very first citation by Amy and Brown, I'll notice that that citation contains a location, in this case Greenwich, Connecticut. Almost any time you see a location, that's a giveaway that what you're looking at is a book. That's the location in which the book was published. So if we look at the next citation down, there's a lot of text there, but there's a location. And again, that location is our clue that this citation is for a book. In this case, this is a chapter in a book, probably an edited volume. But then if we look at this third citation down by Austin, this is an example of what a journal article looks like. We have an article title, we have a journal title, we have a volume number, we have page numbers. What we don't have is the geographical location or the publisher that published the item. So you'll want to spend some time reading these citations and understanding the difference between them, because whether it's a book or an article informs how you would go about finding that information, right? So we learned that catalogs are best used for searching for books, essentially, and databases are best used for searching for articles. So based on the citation you have, that's going to inform where you search for that information. So let's start with this first citation. This is a book, and again we said if you want to look for books, search in catalogs. So I'm going to copy the book title. I'm going to go to the library homepage, and I'm actually just going to go right to WorldCat. And this is a shortcut because WorldCat will tell me if we have the book. If we don't have the book, it will give me a quick link to be able to request it. So I've copied the book title into the WorldCat search box. And here's the book. It shows up. It's the #1 result. And this is actually a great example because it shows me that UMass Boston actually has this book. Not only that, it's available as an ebook. So I can click the View ebook link and be taken directly into that ebook. So if we did not have that book, I'd just be able to click that blue Request Item button and receive that book from another library through interlibrary loan. So that's an example of how you would take a citation and find a book. But again, let's look at that article citation, the third citation down by Austin. In this case, like I said, catalogs are generally good places for searching for books. They're not productive places for searching for articles. The tricky thing about journal articles is different databases have different sets of journals, of articles, of materials. So we're not sure, based on this citation, where this particular journal title, the Journal of Higher Education, might be indexed, which database it might be available in. So there are two things I'm going to show you. The first is the shortcut. It works maybe 75% of the time. If it doesn't work, there's a longer way that we can try to double check this too. So the first thing I'm doing is copying the article title. I'm copying the article title. I'm going back to the library homepage. So instead of searching WorldCat, I'm going to use Google Scholar. So you might have heard of Google Scholar before. It's a Google-like way to search for scholarly articles. It doesn't always guarantee access to the articles, so it's still not going to get you behind paywalls, and they can have kind of a loose interpretation of what scholarly materials are, so you might be linked to some things that aren't necessarily scholarly sources by a traditional definition. So it's not perfect, it's not comprehensive, it's not going to be the only way you want to do research, but it can be a very valuable tool. So I'm going to search for the article title in Google Scholar. And what's great about Google Scholar is that you can use the Google Scholar settings to set your library links. And when you set your library links, that's a quick way of linking up into your databases to help you get behind your paywalls. So you can see that I actually have University of Massachusetts Boston set as my library link here. So that means that anytime an article shows up that's available in our databases, it's going to try to link me to that article, taking me through the right servers so that I get recognized as a UMass Boston user. So you can see that the article we were looking for showed up, and it says full text at Healy Library, which is great. That's the best case scenario. So I can click that full text at Healy Library link, and I can be taken directly to that article in another database, which is terrific. So that saves me a lot of work because I don't need to know which database that article is in. It just takes me directly to it. But like I said, Google Scholar doesn't have all of our databases indexed, and it doesn't have all of the content of those databases done comprehensively. So it's not always a foolproof mechanism. It can be a good shortcut. It's not going to work every single time. So I wanted to show you an example of what it looks like to do this more traditionally. So that's great when Google Scholar does work. That makes our lives a lot easier. But like I said, it's not always going to work. So I wanted to show you an example of what to do if Google Scholar isn't able to find the full text article or isn't able to connect you directly into our databases. So the more traditional mechanism is to look up our e-journals, the list of journals that we subscribe to, and see, first of all, if we subscribe to a particular journal, and second of all, if so, which database that journal is indexed in. So I'm looking back at our list of references, and I'm looking at the third reference down, the reference by Austin. And this is an article that was published in the Journal of Higher Education. So when we were searching Google Scholar, it was the quickest thing to search for the article title. However, when we're doing this more traditional search, when we're looking up our e-journals, we're going to want to search by journal title, not journal article. So I'm going to copy the journal title. I'm going back to the library homepage. I'm clicking in our main navigation menu on e-resources. And from there, I'm looking for the link that says e-journals. So this takes us to a master list of all of the journal articles that we subscribe to electronically, and it'll tell you where those journals are indexed in which databases. So that could be a shortcut to get into a particular journal that you're looking for. So I just copied and pasted the Journal of Higher Education, and I'm searching for that journal. And this is a good example too because it's showing us all of the different databases that we have access to this journal in. But you'll notice that a lot of them have different date ranges. So first you see, do we have access to the journal? Second, you check to see if so, which databases, but you also need to check the date that you need. So I'm going to go back to our reference list, and this article was published in 2002. So I need to pick the database that's going to give me access to this article in 2002. And in this case, several of these databases cover that date range. So in this case, you can pick if there's a particular interface that you're more familiar with or an interface that you prefer. I like using JSTOR, so I can click on JSTOR. And you'll have two different options once you get into this particular journal. So you can actually browse the issues based on the volume and issue number, or you'll usually see a search box that allows you to search within this publication, and sometimes that can be the fastest way. So if I'm looking for an article titled Preparing the Next Generation of Faculty, I can search for that article title in the Journal of Higher Education. And here's the article we're looking for. and here's a link to download the PDF. So that step takes a little bit more work, and it's a few more clicks, it's a few more searches, but that's the most foolproof way to find out whether we actually have access to something or not. So those are just some strategies that you can use to look at a list of references and use that as a list of resources for your research. So we just looked at the process of using a list of references to find additional resources for your research. So that's essentially looking back in time and finding older articles. There's another process that you can use that involves looking forward to see a particular article, who cited it or who used it in their scholarship. So instead of looking backwards at a list of references, you're looking forward at a list of people who took that reference and cited that in their work. And that's what we call citing references. So let's go back to our Austin article, Preparing the Next Generation of Faculty. And I'm going to show you one more trick. I'm going back to the library homepage. And I'm searching for this article in Google Scholar. So I'm going to see if I can turn this article up in Google Scholar. Here it is. That's great. It gives me the full text at Healy Library. But there's one more trick that Google Scholar is great for. And in this case, it tells you this article, which was published in 2002, so it's been published for 13 years now, was cited by 921 additional scholars. So these are scholars who took this article after it was published and then used it in their scholarship and cited it in their bibliography. So that's actually a way of seeing how this article travels forward through the network of scholarship. So if I click Cited by 921, this gives me a list of all of the articles and books and resources in Google Scholar that cite that particular article. So that can be another way to discover more recent scholarship around this same topic. And then you'll notice that each of these citations here also have links that's cited by, that list the people who cite those sources. So this is an interesting way you can start clicking these links, seeing all this information that's connected, and find a new way to discover related resources about your topic.